We'll all be paying more taxes after the pandemic. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee, because guys, we're seeing more and more of these articles, which I think are paving the way for future taxation increases. Recently, I did a video about suggestions from the professional body and lobby group, the Tax Institute, with such pearls of wisdom as bringing back a small inheritance tax, aka death tax. They want to tax you even after you die, guys. Dying is not a freedom from taxation in many parts of the world. It's all based on jealousy and theft, isn't it, really? If you think about it, you work your whole life, pay taxes for every bloody thing, and then when you're dying, you're even paying taxes. But that was only one of their brilliant suggestions for reform. Remember, reform. One was to, increase GST and broaden the scope. But here's the thing. Whenever there's any talk about reform or changes, I just don't believe them anymore when they say they'll get rid of other taxes. Wasn't part of it to reduce stamp duty? Now there's talk of removing stamp duty and replacing it with a land tax. Because all these state governments have become addicted to this spending, to the free money that they're getting. And, we've had our first recession in a decade. Our government is just piling more and more money into the economy. You've got home builder being used to juice up the economy, guys. We've got an unemployment rate that's coming back down, but the government is just throwing more and more money at everything. You've got JobKeeper. So many people were being supported by it. So you can see how I'm not at all surprised we're seeing more of these calls for more taxation. We really are the taxation nation, everyone. Let's bring up this one here. I'm going to show you. Just bear with me as I find this data from the... Wait a minute. Where is it? I've lost it. Here we go. The OECD. Now, this is showing, just comparing Australia to other countries in the world. This is income tax by household type, 2020. Okay, so you see there we're number, fourth. Denmark is right at the top. Then you've got Iceland, then you've got Belgium, then Australia. Right there about 25%. We're a highly taxed nation, guys. And if you think about it, every time you go shopping, every time you go out, you buy some smokes, you're paying tax on that. You buy petrol. You buy petrol to drive to the tax accountant to pay your taxes. You're paying tax on the petrol. To pay your taxes. Welcome to Australia, guys, the taxation nation. The home of the free and the taxed. So let's have a look at how, this article warns us that we're going to be paying more tax after the pandemic ends. As the government throws billions at tackling COVID-19, as the government throws billions to mitigate the impact of their interventions into our freedoms and the economy in an attempt to tackle COVID-19. That's how that sentence should be written. People will be paying for it in years to come. One suggestion is to slug older Australians. Is this going to be the death tax? Because it's not going to be old Australians. It's going to be the generation that is meant to inherit stuff, guys. The biggest unstated message from the Intergenerational report, released by Treasurer Josh Frydenberg last month during the lull between lockdowns, is that we need more tax. Really? I'll just bring this one up again. Do we need more tax? Do we need more tax? Let's ask those of you, the viewers of the channel. I did a poll. Let's bring that up. Do you like paying taxes? 16% said yes out of 3,000 votes, and 84% said no. Rodney is going tax beyond belief. And you know that the socialists in Australia will never be satisfied with how much tax you pay. Well, no, they won't. It's all about the forced redistribution of wealth from one group to another. And you can understand why people just are fed up and they step away, they step out. You've got, the monk movement and the whole MGTOW movement online of men just disengaging entirely. So, going to the dentist or having bamboo shoots jammed under my fingernails will be a better choice. Or maybe, there you go. So, Kevin doesn't like taxes. Jason Kennedy. I think I would like paying taxes a lot more if the tax-free threshold was at least as high as the poverty line. Government should not tax those living in poverty. That's ridiculous to me. Well, people are paying it all the time, guys. They want to just tax you, tax you, tax you. I would like to see people able to provide for food and for shelter before they pay a cent to the state. Anyway, so not now. At the moment, it's a matter of throwing everything we've got at getting on top of the COVID outbreaks and worrying about how to and the extent of which we will need to pay for it later. But when the economy is healthy again, taxes are going to have to rise big time. That's the intergenerational report. That the intergenerational report doesn't say so explicitly might be because the government is sticking with its arbitrary and implausible guarantee that tax collections will never climb above 23.9% of GDP, which is the average between the introduction of the goods and services tax and the GFC. Or it might be because what's needed sits at odds with the legislated high-end tax cuts likely to cost $17 billion per year from 2024 to 25. When you look at those high-end tax cuts, and you'll see a lot of these journalists, they'll get jealous. They'll get jealous that people who are earning more get bigger tax returns or bigger tax savings. It's because they're paying more. Do people not get this? Do they not get? If you want to get a bigger tax cut, earn $200,000 a year. Go on, go do it. It's not going to be fun. Some people aren't cut out for it. They don't want to do it, guys. And you have people bitching and moaning about the wealth inequality. A lot of it's also effort inequality too. Seriously, money ain't everything. Okay, don't kid yourself. Do not kid yourself. You can be much happier on a lot less money than having a shitload of money, okay? That's the big secret right there. If you haven't figured that out yet, money ain't going to be the solution to your problems, guys. Unfortunately, that sometimes only comes with old age. Among the drivers of increased government spending identified by the report is spending on health, which represents a 4.6% gross domestic product. And on the report's projections is set to climb to 6.2% over the next 40 years. If you want to really take... my biggest issue with this is a lot of our health problems are from our diet. It's from the standard diet that the government's telling you to eat. They're telling you to eat all this crap, all this carb-loaded, sugary processed garbage that creates people with pre-diabetic or insulin resistance, and then you get all these health issues. We went to the hospital. We saw all the food that they were serving there. It's still the same old shit. It's just ludicrous. In 10 or 20 years' time, mark my words, I'll look back at some of the stuff we were eating now in shock. Unless we're living in the dystopian Great Reset pod future where we all have to eat our plant and bug burgers in our pods, but hopefully it won't come to that. Anyway, to fund that loan, the government will need to collect 6% more tax in 2061 that it would have had spending on health stayed where it was as a proportion of GDP. Or you can just cut other costs. Maybe instead of buying these submarines from the other side of the world, let's just buy a whole lot of cheap, shittier ones that we can, run through, more cost effective. Perhaps surprisingly, most of the extra spending on health won't be a direct result of the population aging. It'll be because health technologies are getting better and becoming much more expensive, a la the COVID vaccine. It's also because incomes are rising. Rising incomes, the report explains, are the largest driver of government spending on health internationally. That's because for some things, including the provision of hospitals, private spending can't cut it, no matter how well off you are. After billionaire Kerry Packer suffered a massive heart attack while playing polo in 1990, he was rushed to Sydney's Liverpool Hospital. When the ANU election survey began in 1990, 54% of Australians surveyed regarded health as extremely important in determining their vote. It's now 70%. In 1990, 11% regarded health as not very important. Now just 2%. The Intergenerational report has spending on aged care climbing from 1.2% to 2.1% of GDP, which by itself means the tax take will have to be 4% higher than otherwise. But it was prepared ahead of the government's final response to the Aged Care Royal Commission. The interim response had 14, mostly expensive recommendations subject to further consideration. The National Disability Insurance Scheme already accounts for 1 in 20 tax dollars collected and is set to overtake Medicare. Now, this is crazy, this scheme. The problem is it has all these set costs in the scheme that people can charge. And guess what they're going to charge? The most that they can. There's no competition in it anymore. So we'll need to spend more than projected. None of this extra spending is bad if it delivers value for money, and it's what the public wants. But it's hard to reconcile with official projections in the report showing government spending climbing only 2.5% per year in real terms over the next 40 years, compared to 3.4% in the past 40. The report gets there in part by an outrageous sleight of hand. It says job seeker and other payments will become tiny as a proportion of GDP because they will only climb with inflation, which is typically low, rather than wage growth or GDP growth, which is typically higher and lines up with how the pension grows. Well, you've got to remember, job seeker is an emergency payment to protect people from destitution. It's not a UBI. It's not an income replacement. It's not insurance. It's not income protection insurance. If you want that, you need to go out there and buy it. Okay? Sure. I mean, is it tax deductible? Someone tell me. I think it is. I haven't bothered with it in years. But get that then if you want it. Don't expect the government to take care of you, okay? That's a mistake right there. You can't trust them. They'll take care of you, all right? They'll take your money off you. A moment's reflection would show if that actually happened for 40 years, which is what the Treasury's report assumes, job seekers will fall from 70% of the single-age pension to a hard-to-justified 40%. We know it won't happen because it hasn't happened. Job seeker was boosted this year after only 20 years rather than 40 in order to make sure that sort of thing wouldn't happen. And we know there's nothing to stop an intergenerational report using more realistic assumptions. The 2015 report, released at a time when the Abbott government planned to adjust the pension in line with the more measly job seeker formula, relaxed the assumption after 13 years because if it was left in place, the pension would slide untenably below community expectations. Well, here's the thing. Maybe if we weren't burdened with so much bloody tax our whole lives, people wouldn't need to depend on all of these payments. You know, they're just a novel idea. So, we'll easily be able to afford more tax. You think? You think, guys? Will you easily be able to... You know what? No, you know what will happen. Everyone who has the means will just avoid tax as much as they can. That's what they'll do. They'll find legal methods to get out of paying it. We all know that happens. Look at housing. Look at negative gearing. There's nothing wrong with paying more tax. Yeah, okay. If it's for things we want, like better health care, aged care, better disability care, and benefits we can live on. Okay, all of this stuff a lot of it can be addressed by diet. Look, if you don't believe me, look up Low Carb Down Under. Look at some of the lectures there from the doctors and how they're treating chronic health issues with just changing diet. Because the stuff we're eating now, the majority of what Australians are eating is processed garbage that didn't exist 100 years ago. And you wonder why we've got all this, such high rates of diabetes. We're all morbidly obese, and overweight, sorry. And we're at risk of greater hospitalization rates from COVID and other things. The Intergenerational report has government spending climbing by 4%. 4 percentage points of GDP between now and 2061, but it also has real GDP per person almost doubling, climbing 80%. Okay, now that's bullshit right there, because our GDP has been growing. GDP per capita has been growing below trend since the GFC, and you can see in this chart I made here. Okay, that line crossing the screen, that's the trend line, and you can see GFC there. See that big fall, and see how many of them are below that trend line. So our GDP is growing, it's great, but on a per-person basis, it's growing slower. It's almost as if the economy has been depressed. A depression, one might say. Anyway, even if that's an overestimate and GDP per person grows by, say, 50%, and the need for tax growth grows by more than 4 points, we'll easily be able to afford the extra tax, and we'll want that tax... What? And we'll want what the tax will buy. Expectations climb with income. The present government will be long gone by the time the tax to GDP ratio reaches the cap of 23.9% of GDP. The finance minister who came up with the cap, Matthias Cormann, is now head of the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, in which the average tax take is 34% of GDP. Yeah, well, we'll bring this up again here. Depends on how you look at it, mate. It depends on how you look at it. If we look at it per household, it's a little different, isn't it? Who is this reporter? Why are they so just, they're loving these taxes? Come on, Peter. Oh, there we go, Peter Martin. This is from the conversation, so there you go. Anyway. Grattan Institute calculations suggest an older household earning $100,000 pays less than half the tax of a working-age household on the same level. Oh, hang on, wait. An obvious place to look for tax is high-income senior citizens at present enjoying tax-free super, refundable franking credits, and special tax offers. Yeah, that franking credits, we all get franking credits. Everyone can get them. What? So we need to look at these organizations and the author of this article. We've got the Grattan Institute, a think tank, and, well, they're meant to be independent, but they are proud advocates for that lockdown, like pushing hard for it. It's all over their website and their media. And, well, the economic commentator Peter Martin, who wrote this piece, well, he's a former Commonwealth Treasury official, economic correspondent, so that's going to shape and influence his position and arguments. If you're writing for the ABC, you're writing for the conversation, your experiences inside government, are you really going to have a position that, well, is critical of the gravy train that you've built your whole life and career on? So maybe it's probably a bit easier for these civil servants to advocate for more taxes, particularly when we just compare their wage growth to the average people. I mean, just have a look here, guys. Comparing civil, public sector year-on-year percent change to private sector. Who's supporting who? Who are meant to be the servants of who? Maybe it should just be framed as all government civil servants should be happy paying more taxes. Anyway, like households of less well-off seniors, those households are highly likely to use these services taxes provide. To say we'll need more tax is not to say the government needs to fund all of its spending with tax. It is projecting budget deficits for the next 40 years. Budgets have been in deficit for all but a few of the past 100. But it will need to cover much of it with tax to keep the economy in check. If we want what tax provides, we'll be prepared to pay for it. So there you go, everyone. Do you want what tax provides? Or would you be happy for maybe a little bit more rigor, maybe a bit more reduction in the amount of tax? Are you as excited as Peter is here from the conversation to pay that extra tax? What do you reckon, everyone? Well, let me know your thoughts and opinions to this. Well, first off, what are the solutions? We need to make it quite clear and well known to our representatives that we don't want to pay more tax, that they would be happy to have a reduction in certain services. Maybe advocate for a smaller government, less intervention on our lives. Wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't that be novel? Can you see it happening in Australia? Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one in the comments down below. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.